Hey everybody, Doug here from 2 Plus Stuff, and I am hanging out this evening and doing a little bit of hobby, different kind of hobby than I have been for a while. So I'm basically waiting for the bases on my Nurgle stuff to dry. I did all the, I'll pick it up nice and gentle, but all the green stuffing for the rest of the bases that I have to do for the army, but it's going to take a little time. So in the meantime, I was going to paint and repaint some Iron Jawz stuff. Sorry, I have a cough drop in my mouth because my throat will not clear up. And then we're going to talk about that new battle tone. Let's go to the downward cam here. Get that set up. If you can see and hear me okay, let me know in the chat so I know that everything is working just fine. I'd appreciate that. Give me one sec. All right. Sean Blake's in the house. Hey, what's up? So what I have up here on my shelf is this is a War Chanta. And what I'm going to do, I've already kind of been playing around with a few ways to make this color scheme different. Essentially what I'm going to try doing is just repainting the orange parts and making them white. Because if you have seen the scheme that comes like in the old Iron Jawz book, the blue and white one, very, very striking, and I actually really like it, and so that's what I'm going to go for. I'm also going to try making the metal a little bit darker. Maybe that would help with the kind of making the blue pop a bit more. So let's go ahead and do that. Let me grab my paints. I have a bunch of these dudes, so having one guy with white shoulder pads versus orange, not going to throw things off a whole lot. Of course, we need a Celestial Gray. And if you are in the chat, tell me, what are you working on? Here it is. I just got a new thing of Celestial Gray last night, so let's finish this one off here. Get my brushes. Use a War Chanter as well. Other AOS model with orc jumping. Let's see, put that there, right there. Need my crappy mixing one. And we'll take these big guys. Painting squigs. And hey, Ben's in the house. What's up? What's up? I had a fantastic game night last night with my good friend Ben in the chat. We played Warcry and we played 40K. It was glorious. Ben's in the process of building a Daughters of Cain army. Which is just so many models. It can be, anyway. So it's cool that he has a chance to bust them out with Warcry, rather than having to wait until he has, not a full force, but something big enough where you can get all the fun stuff. You know what I mean? Above an army. So yeah. Actually painting some objective markers to look like orcs. That sounds awesome. So yeah, so basically with these guys, if you have not been on the channel long, I had the Iron Jawz, and then I sold them to Jack from Rerolling Ones, and then right before I went to Nova, I was getting kind of burnt out on the game a little bit, just because rules were getting so complicated, and I was like, what army was really simple? Iron Jawz. And that's true. I stand by that statement. At the time it certainly was. Well, so I got my Iron Jawz back from him because he was kind enough. They already have Iron Jawz with Shu. He has yellow ones that are amazing looking. So I got these back, and they kind of been languishing. And then I started the Magakin project, and I was like, maybe I'll get rid of them. Because my hobby juices were reinvigorated. And then I got this book. I got the Orc War Clans book early from GW. Thank you, GW. And it is amazing. It actually is so freaking cool. That I don't know, it just totally it made me do a 180, and I was just like, I really want to play this army. Luckily, I have a whole army of them, and but I wasn't a fan of how I painted them the first time. If you were around when I was painting them, I went through a few different paint schemes because I just couldn't get something I loved. And so that's what we're working on now. My first time doing like the checkered patterns and that kind of stuff. I did a test one on his arm here, and it worked pretty well. I'm actually going to paint the blue back over that and restart because I learned how to do it better since. But yeah. Me one sec here. The problem is, this is always the problem whenever I get rid of an army. I don't remember what colors I used. I was told that you should always keep... No, it's not Lothar. That's way too bright. Yeah, that looks about right. I was told you should always keep a diary with like your paint stuff so you can like, you know, reference it later. Totally did not do that. That's a great idea. I may have missed this, but what is the white stuff in the middle of the desk? Why has it been there for several videos? Because I haven't gotten around to buying a new cutting board. Basically, I tried making my bases with milliput, and I got some kind of concoction wrong, and it wouldn't come off of the desk, off the mat. So this is a solid hunk of milliput that is going nowhere. But that's okay. I have paints and cuts and all kinds of stuff in the cutting board, so it's had a good life for the like $6 I paid for it. Okay, that's good. Just using this opportunity to clean up some of the other blue spots on here. So, yeah, that was me being a dingus. I was like, man, milliput's so much cheaper than green stuff. I'm sure I could just do this with milliput. And my buddy Max at my game night was like, oh yeah, I use milliput all the time for sculpting and that kind of stuff. Yeah, it didn't work so well for me. Put the milliput with your logo. That's funny. Yeah, let's do that. There we go. Now it's not just a blight on the screen. There we go. Sean Blake. Oh, am I coming to Dark Side? No, I'm not, unfortunately. 2-day events are hard. Especially this particular weekend. Normally, I have Fridays off from work thanks to my incredible patrons over on Patreon. They support me in a way that I can financially afford to be off from work 3 days a week, and that's how I do videos. But work was kind of extra crazy this week, so I had to work today just to help everybody out, you know? Want to make sure my employer is happy with me. And basically, the manufacturer of the stuff that we offer fell behind, and so we had all these back orders, and the resupply came in today, of course, the day I was supposed to be out. So I was like, yeah, I'll help you out. So it's the worst week for it because I have the War Clans Battle Tome in the Cities of Sigmar sitting here. I was like, all I want to do is read those books. So yeah. Okay, so we have the blue and white. I'm gonna let that dry for just a hot second. I'm gonna read the chat while it does. It's mashed potatoes. Yes. What is it? They did it in UHF. Was it Close Encounters when he like puts the mashed potatoes in a big pyramid? It's like, this means something. This is important. That's how I am with this. Okay. You could use that rock of material on your desk to test your dry brush. That's true. That's a good use for it. Chaos Lord. Oh, hey there. I'm just gonna call it Chaos Lord now. Have you read Scourge of Fate? I have not. It just came out recently, I think, right? It's a really new one, I believe. Scourge of Fate. Maybe I'm wrong. Hold on, let me double check which one that is. Scourge of Fate. Yeah, it came out in... No. Oh, no. It's not out yet. Yeah, expected on October 15th. Unless it's a compilation of something else. Am I crazy? That name sounds like it's older, but the book actually comes out on the 15th. Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Okay, thank you. Oh, Michael Hammond's in the chat. This guy did a great job with Korn on Rerolling Ones. If you haven't watched that battle report, what are you doing? Let's see, I need my Wolfsbane Gray. Here we go. Hardcover and ebook are out. Huh, that's so weird. What is this? Oh, it's just on Goodreads is the 15th. Okay. No, I've not read it. But if it's anything like the old Call of Archeon series, it's going to be legit. Can tell you that. Because that series was awesome. The Epic Archer, thank you for helping me learn so much about Age of Sigmar. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. It's very kind of you. Yeah, I'm having a great time with all the lore stuff. Let's see, that's dry. It is dry. Okay, cool. So, let's see. We'll throw a quick wash on there, and we'll clean him up. I think I will like the white more than the orange. I don't usually paint orange, and so it's just a little out of my zone, which is good. But when I'm trying to do like a reclamation project versus like intentionally trying something new, it's not super helpful. Let's see. With all the fantasy games coming in... Oh, hold on. Did I miss something? No. With all the fantasy games coming out, which one is the best to get into that can be cheap on the wallet? So if you're asking, like... I only cover, like, Games Workshop games. If you're looking for something like that, for fantasy, most likely it's going to be Warcry. And the reason is because you can buy a box of Bone Splitters and not much else, to be honest with you. I mean, you need the rule book and that kind of stuff, but that's certainly the most bang for your buck one. And man, I'm having a great time with Warcry. I got sidetracked, but yes, I had a great time hanging out with Ben last night. We played a game of Warcry, and so the mission was like an attacker-defender type thing. And it ended... It didn't... So basically, I was trying to kill Ben's dagger, which ended up being 2 of the Kinerai from Daughters of Cain. And I had the Corvus Cabal. I just like hurled all the bodies at him. And the way that that mission works is you either have to kill the dagger, or at the end of the 4th battle round, if the dagger is within 4 inches of the table edge, they count as being slain. So I can either kill him or just play defense and pin him in the corner. And that's exactly where his models came in, is the corner. And so that's exactly what I did. I just threw a bunch of the Kabbalite cultists, little like nobody dudes, chumps, and used the awesome, incredible ability of the Corvus Cabal to keep people from retreating. Or doing the disengage action, I guess is what's technically called. And pinned him there for most of the game. It ended up being really, really cool. The last round, it became pretty clear as the round started that I just didn't have enough juice to kill him or pin him there. And the ladies having fly really, really helped out. But I never felt like leading up to that last turn, it was pretty tense because I had all the bodies in the world to chuck at him. And so it ended up being a really fun game. like all the games of Warcry I've had, kind of gets tense in terms of like going back and forth on who has a chance. So yeah. Oakshan, hey Doug, do you think I should suck up the Forge World price for a Rogue Idol? It'll be worth it to make my own. Well, we don't actually. I mean, I think they're going to redo the War Scroll for it, so I'm not actually sure what the Rogue Idol is going to be like. So I don't know, but you know, I will say, I own the Rogue Idol. He's cool. I'm not sure if he's worth as much as Forge World costs him at. Like, I think if you took the same amount of money, you could probably make a really cool Counts as. If I'm super honest. Because, like, he's a lot of resin, but it's not, like, the most detailed thing ever. Let's see. Sean was kind enough to be supplying a few tables of terrain. Oh, sweet! Are you making a lore video about the new battle tomes? Nope. Nope. I just decided that those are the only 2 battle tomes I'm not going to cover on the channel. No, of course. I'm just pointing like, yes, of course I am. Yeah, I'm going to do probably maybe 2 videos about the Iron Jawz, just because the War Clans. I mean, just because the lore for the individual units really hasn't changed. I more just want to cover stuff that we learn about all of Orc kind, as well as they both got like additional kind of like Stormhost things where you can like, I choose that my orcs are from this kind of clan or tribe or whatever, and get special rules. So I want to cover those, and those seem to be pretty much staples of the game now whenever they release a new battle tome. So. And then Cities of Sigmar has a lot to cover, like a lot. Each city has its own lore. All the units, they don't. I appreciate the fact, just for the sake of how big the book would be, I appreciate the fact that they didn't go into hyper detail on the lore of every single unit. They really just talk about them as like their individual groups, like. This is the Darkling Covens, and just kind of talks about them on their own as they are. And I was like, that's cool. And kind of points out what some cool stuff about them is, but it doesn't go like, and these are Black Spears, and then these are, you know what I mean, that kind of stuff. So yeah. Let's see. Chaos Lord, you ever paint a model without primer? I did when I was a child, and my grandmother gave me a whole bunch of models, and I just tried throwing stuff at them. But not since I've been painting, like when I graduated college, I got back into the hobby. Not since then. The hurt was still too real. I remember it. I'm going to grab my little detail one here. I'm going to start working on some of these checker patterns. I know right now, Jack is playing against one of our local best and brightest of Alex Gonzalez, who I believe is also going to the event tomorrow, up in Bellingham, Washington. No, I messed these checkers up. Alrighty, okay. Gotta use a finer brush. Oh, we'll let that dry. It's turning out okay though. Not terrible. First layer, eyes drag. Here we go. No Iron Jawz Harlequins. Yeah, they have a good tutorial of how to do it in the book. It's just it's still a thing that requires practice. Did a pretty good job on these models when I did it before. It just needs, basically the big thing with the, or I have found with the Iron Jawz is the way that I painted them is with these models there's just a lot of flat surface area, and so I don't know. You gotta do stuff to make it like pop, right? Otherwise they're just big and boring. So let's see here. Need a steady hand for that sort of thing. Yeah, I'm trying. Oh, a little practice. I have fairly steady hands. They're not the best, but they're what I got. Let's see. So, Doug, are you going to be an Iron Jawz Force or the Big Wah? I honestly am a bigger fan of the Iron Jawz, if I'm super honest. The Big Wah was just not what I expected. It's cool. It's super cool. I guess the hype train made me think that it was going to be like a way to like summon orcs. Instead, it's just like you accrue these bonuses as stuff goes on. And I think that it would become a lot to remember. I'll try it. But I think initially I'm going to stick mostly with the Iron Jawz stuff because it's just more straightforward. Which I kind of value about the army. Lady Chicken Sword, are they for AOS, Warcry, or both? Both. Both. I have plenty to play. Even with the new points reductions, play a full game of AOS with them. So why not? So yeah, I just sat here before hopping on, chatting with Jack about the different options available to the Iron Jawz stuff. And they're pretty interesting. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna bore y'all with reading the book to you, but they're freaking cool. Wait, where is Nurgle? Nurgle is, you see these bases in the top right corner? I was stalled on that project because I ran out of green stuff and my order took forever to reach me. And so, order of green stuff that is. And so, right before the stream, I rolled out all the bases that I need. But then I need to dry. And I was like, well, while they're drying, might as well paint some orcs. Because I already have a fully painted army of them. And why not? Plus, I don't know, I spent the last day or so reading that battle tome for the Iron Jawz. So freaking cool. I will say I expected a little bit more for the Bone Splitter side. But overall, I mean, there's still huge improvements if you were a Bone Splitter player. Let's see. I would pay you to read the book to me. Actually, let's get a thinner one. Let's see. Alistair, are you... Patrick, thank you for the color scheme. Alistair? Yes, not some more ones. I got my old Iron Jawz back, and so I'm trying to repaint them in a way that I like more than what I had before. Maybe 1 second of holding my breath silence. There we go, that's much better. I think I just needed a smaller tip brush. Yeah. Okay. Harlequin orcs are on the menu. The nice thing is I don't feel like I have to be like perfect clean squares like I would if they were Harlequins, just because at the end of the day it is an orc painting a checkered pattern on himself. Iron Jawz 2 Jaw Harder. I love it. Is it Techless Blue? It is. Yes, Techless Blue. Predominantly. Okay, not perfect, but we can clean up the edges when I go back in with the blue to remove the lines. Perfect. Let's see. Lady War, are you still running the book club? Sort of. Basically, my work has gotten extremely busy with my day job. And so my time to read was cut dramatically from when I first started that. So I am still reading right now. I'm reading the short story compilation for Warcry stuff. It's just taken me forever. And so, yes, I am going to do it. It's just not going to be the regular once a month thing like we had intended. But there will be book reviews. And this one's a little bit weird because his armor kind of curves in a weird way that like the Iron or the Ard boys don't. So this is probably the worst model to experiment on. But overall I'm pretty happy with it. How's that book any good? So each of these stories is written by a different author, And I will say that I think the quality of the writing changes from author to author. Some are super cool and they have very charismatic characters, and you're like, yes, this is everything I wanted in whatever that person is. And then some are like, fell a little flat, you know, like everything when you go from one author to another. They just have different visions of the setting and that kind of thing. And so some are good. The standout hits for me are the story about the what are they called? Yeah, see, this is hard because it requires me knowing the names of all the warbands. I just started the Corvus Cabal. What's the name of the other ones? Hold on a second. The Untamed Beast one was freaking rad. That was a super good one. Guilty, we have Pagano's. Hold on a second. I'm just pulling up the name of the warbands. The one for the Cypher Lords was super good. I like that one quite a bit. But yeah, those are probably the best ones in my opinion. So I don't know how well you can see it, but the checker pattern came out pretty well. I'm pretty happy with it. I gotta touch up some more stuff on the skin here. I'm gonna have to reread the book just to remember all the points I have. So yeah, it was a good one. I'm trying to think of the one that I really didn't care for. I think that was the Unmade one was pretty cool. I might do a lore video for each of the warbands from that book, because they're not like the definitive lore of like this is what all Unmade are like. It's just a kind of a, no, that author, like, this is their lore if they had the Unmade warband kind of thing. And so you get to see what people will think of how these factions interpret the mortal realms and that kind of stuff, which is cool. It's a really cool idea for a book, and I'd love to see like a second edition of it with like different, like every author swaps warbands kind of thing. But not all of them achieve it the same way. All right. Let's try another one, this time on his leg. Love Harlequins, but I'm not to try that scheme. Yeah, it's a tough one. I've actually always been intimidated by those models, 100%. Let's see. Lady War, have you read War Queen? Yes, I have. I like that one. I did a review of that a long while ago. It wasn't perfect, for sure. Nothing ever is. But I found it to be very enjoyable. Let's see. My fool's ambition is to paint up a Wanderer's army in the Harlequin style. Oh, that sounds ambitious as all heck, and I love it. All right. Never get painted though. He's got to practice at it. Like I'm practicing these things. I don't think the pattern of the checkered thing is too hard. What I struggle with is the way that the in this case armor, but on Harlequin's be fabric, when it like is rounded. That's when it gets hard for me. Let's see. I like him. I think I like him more than the orange. So I'm going to go with that. I'm torn. Because, like, let me grab an orange powder guy. Shoulder pad guy. Like... Okay, so I'll let the chat help me out. I know this camera is not the best for this kind of thing, but like this is how that same armor looks when one has orange shoulder pads versus one has white. What do y'all like? This one I'll probably keep the same just because I'm gonna have multiple war chantes and one might as well have white, you know, why not? But I don't know. Because the orange color wheel wise is a opposite, and so it'll pop. Okay, got a lot of votes coming in for the white. I like them being different. Yeah, it's tough. I wonder if the orange would look good if there was some white on here, like to break up the two colors. Like if I did the same checkered thing on here with the orange shoulder pads. Dustin says I would say orange and keep the white for shoulder. Yeah, I'll tell you what, let's try that. Because I have them. We'll just try one by doing some white here. Because that's my biggest thing with the reason I got rid of the army and why I wasn't enjoying is because I just couldn't get the paint scheme the way that I wanted it to. Or the way that I was happy with it. And so, I don't know, kind of just got a little despondent on it. Okay. White and blue checks would probably make the orange look better. Would make the orange look... Okay. Yeah, so stick with the orange and add some white. Thank you, everybody, for helping me. Colors are one of those things I've never been good at, like in terms of choosing the right ones. And I know Jack always liked the orange because it's different. Like you just don't see a lot of orange armies or armies that use the color orange. Some squig armies look really good in orange, but I think the traditional color for them is kind of that red, which looks awesome. Let's see. Cool turquoise. There we go. And burnt orange is amazing. Right on. I go over the orange with brass or bronze metallic. Love metallics. Okay. Well, you know what? We're in the experimentation phase. So let's try all of it. Need to add a little bit more white here. Sorry, guys. Being a little quiet. I'm just trying to focus on my little super tiny little lines. Spezia Dugwood, what's happening here? I got so excited about the new War Clans book that I decided to bust out my Iron Jawz and see if I can repaint them in a way that I like. Because if I could find a way to paint them in a way that I love, they're already a fully painted army and ready to go to an event. You know what I mean? Like they're already fully done. So it's just like, yeah, let's just try and find some ways to make them work. You know what? I like all three combined. I like the orange with the white checkers. It just has something to make it pop. I think that's the way of the future. Let's see. Question. I didn't know Iron Jawz could take the mark of Nurgle. Of course they can. This is Age of Sigmar. Anything can be anything. One viewer messaged me and was like, hey, I have this story for my Warcry warband where I want my orcs, I think they were Iron Jawz specifically, to basically be fighting for Archaon's honor. Like, they realized, they saw all these cool Varangard and were like, oh, these guys are the biggest and the meanest. We should fight for whoever leads them because he's probably the biggest mega boss of all. And he was like, is that a cool lore story? I was like, dude, you're talking to someone who's only ever going to tell you that is the coolest story ever. You can't fathom telling somebody that their story is wrong or can't happen. It's like, man. I'm getting better with every time I try this, though. I can already tell my lines are getting cleaner. The way I fill it in is getting sharper. Quick, someone suggest the most absurd lore story ever. MoonClan Stormcast. Make it happen. Make those models. I'm actually looking at some point of having a lore contest on the channel where people like write their custom stories and send them in, and I can basically do like lore videos but for fan-made things. And one of the things I thought about was like having categories of like goofiest idea, but like you got to do it right. You know what I mean? Like have it be well written, well constructed, well thought out, but whatever the craziest thing is. So yeah, like MoonClan Stormcast would be hilarious. Make that happen. All right, friends, I think that's the magic we're going to go with. We're just going to add some white checkers to everything. I did find on that war chanter, where I put them, that I guess before I just didn't like do highlights. So I have to go through and highlight the armor. But other than that, I think we're looking pretty good. Vegan Gut Buster. I love that. That's a super fun idea. I also didn't do any washes on the weapons. Man, what was I thinking when I got rid of these? I have so much work to do on them. All right, well, let's get to it. Oh, we got 48 minutes. All right. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna grab some more brutes. Okay. So I got my Mega Boss on foot and a bunch of brutes. So since that white paint that I have here is drying, we're actually going to go through first and do all of the highlights. Then we'll come back around and do all the checkers and that kind of thing. I am a brute shy. All right, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. Ah, here we go. Sweet. Vegan Gut Busters just eating Sylvanep. I love it. Really do. Hugh, question, is evil an emotion? That is a great question for literally any philosophy channel, of which I am not one. Okay. Let's see, Doug, you can always use one more brute. I'm excited. Because my guys are blue, my instant thought, if you haven't seen the rules for it, is going with Dachapa. It's like their Stormhost equivalent or whatever. And they're pretty darn cool. So I'm actually excited that my paint scheme panned out well for me. Let's see. Joseph, so is this for the new book? It is, yes. I got an early copy from GW and I'm very excited about it. And so I was about to sell these guys off. And the book was, it's one of those things like going into the book's release, I knew they were coming. And I was still thinking of selling them off. Vince Ventrella from Warhammer Weekly was making fun of me because he's like, when do you celebrate Christmas in March? Like, this is the time to be the most excited for your army. And I was like, I don't know. They have to do something pretty amazing to make me excited about orcs again. Usually when I finish a project, I never go back to it. Like, this is the first time I will have increased the painting level of an army. So, I don't know. It's a big deal for me anyway. And so, just trying to think of ways to make the army more interesting. Paint it up, add little details to it. Unfortunately, I've already started the bases, but I actually like the bases. So I painted these bases to be like Gur, with that kind of like rugged amber tundra type thing going on. And actually, I like the way they turned out, so I'm not too upset about that one. Plus, Gur is my favorite realm. Let's see. Good evening, everybody. Hello, Daniel. Moment of silence for our beastmen of yore. Yeah, they didn't make it. I will remember you. Just a bunch of black and white pictures of my hobby progress. Will you remember me? And then a picture of the video that I was like, I'm going to do Beast Chaos all year. Just got back from a drama-filled kill team game. That shouldn't be a sentence. What the heck happened? That's like saying you came back from a bad night of drinking or something. I don't know. All right. 3 players, 1 noob, and 2 that guys. Oh, that's a bummer. Let's see. The Grizzly. Oh, a little donation. Thank you so much. Just wanted to send support. One of the few channels that focus on Age of Sigmar lore. Love your content. Thank you so much. That is incredibly kind of you. I really do appreciate it. That means the world to me. Never had a bad night of drinking, just bad mornings. Yep. I had an English teacher when I was in high school. He says, most of the things we say that we're afraid of in life, we're not actually afraid of. We're afraid of consequences, and that's an important distinction. That the thing is not scary, the consequences are. And so his examples to a bunch of, high schoolers in Texas who very much obviously had access to alcohol was just that, nutty drinking, no one's scared of that. People really don't like hangovers. Same thing with, even like spiders. You're not scared of spiders, you're scared of what a spider can do. I was like, that's an interesting thought. Let's see. It was still a good learning experience. That guys hate each other too. It's hard when you get into the sense of like the enemy of my enemy is my friend when you're playing with them both at the same time. But I'm glad you got some good practice in. I got some practice in last night for Warhammer 40k. I found out Lord of Contagion, super lame. Didn't like him one bit. I mean, I had nothing to really support him. He's just kind of a melee beast, and I just assumed he was like a more supporty hero, so I kept him in the back. And then when he actually got a chance to do something, I kind of just looked at his, not war scroll, but data entry like that, and I was just like, oh, this guy, I've been playing him wrong, like literally since I put him on the table. He's not good at just sitting back and buffing my guys. In fact, he doesn't. The Lord of Change is a freaking nuke. What did I say? Sorry, there's a delay, so I might have missed what the joke was. Okay. Lord of Contagion. Oh. I don't know what I was thinking of. I'm sure he is. I'm sure he's super good. He did manage to take out a chapter master in 1-to-1 combat to win the game. It was more just I 100% thought that he was like a captain equivalent. He's not. He's a melee monster. But he's not like a stand back and buff your guys. So I just, it was my first time taking a death guard. Like the death guard that I was painting for a while before I started the Nurgle project, when I was still like ordering stuff. It was actually the first time I've ever fielded them. And I did pretty good. I didn't even know he had cataphractii armor until I went to run, and my opponent was like, "Yeah, you can't make it that far." I was like, "What do you mean?" Womp womp. Let's see. What does the Crown of Kurdos and Toilet Seat have in common? Everything except proper placement. Oh, tell me more. What's up with the armor? The armor on these guys or the Cataphractii armor from my Nurgle story? Just to make sure I'm not getting confused. While you answer that, I will... Nurgle. Oh, yeah. So, in 40k, there's different kinds of Terminator armor, like the big, heavy elite troop things. And I'm just assuming because I don't know how much you know. One of those variants of armor is called Cataphractii armor, which gives you... It's like tougher than tough. It's like super crazy tough. But what it does is every time you go to run, it cuts your run roll in half. Just to demonstrate its like super extra armor, slow bulkiness. And so I was trying to run him up basically the side of a piece of terrain. And it proved to be very difficult because it was like 5 inches of like 5 inches in height of terrain, like off the side of a building type thing. And he just kept rolling terribly. And so it was just like the saddest thing of my big bad melee monster being like, as he tries to like scrape up the side of the wall. So I'm sure to the Space Marines watching, it was probably something out of a Chris Farley movie. That same level of stupid hijinks of a big fat guy trying to crawl up. Good to know. Yeah, I think someone correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't honestly, my 40k game knowledge is very limited. But is all of the Terminator variants for Death Guard specifically, are they all in Cataphractii armor? Because I feel like their legions or their army specific ones are also in Cataphractii armor. So the idea being is you can teleport them in. It's one of their abilities. So that's definitely the way to go. I just didn't see that on any of his stuff. I wasn't reading. I was just like, hey, I think we played either 600 or 800 points. I can't recall. It's just something awkward to get me to play, basically. Which was nice, because, you know, whenever I play with an army, it just definitely reinvigorates my passion for them. And so that's... I need to get out there and start playing some games with these guys and with the Maggotkin ASAP. I will say that in terms of playstyle, I think I will enjoy the Iron Jawz more in the current setup. So they might be my de facto army for going to events, but the Nurgle were always meant to be a hobby project, and that's okay. You just got started being teleported, though? Yeah, for sure. Learned that lesson. I mean, I ended up winning the game, but I also know Ben was taking it easy on me. Because he's a super good player. And he wins like 90% of the games we play against. Or when we play against each other, I mean. But I will say my dudes, Plague Marines, stood up to a Demolisher cannon pretty well. Pretty well. Let's see. Debbie Soren question: with the 4 books announced in the near future, which army do you think you'll be given? Which army do you think will be given a new tome next? With the 4 books announced, what 4 books are you talking about? The only 4 books I know, are Maw Tribes and the new Death Army. What's the other 2? Because, like, Cities of Sigmar and Orcs are, like, out. So just clarify that. I'll happily wait. W. Soren, you always ask good questions. I appreciate it. Joseph, the ones that I imagine. Okay, so yeah, if you're thinking like the new ones, including those 2. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. I misunderstood because I thought when I heard like future books, I was more thinking like there was some rumor or something like that. Sorry. What's next? Well, I can only tell you what I'd like there to be next, right? I don't do rumors or any of that kind of stuff. Like I don't follow any of those circles. So as far as what I'd like to see, I would really like to see a Seraphon book more than anything. I just think that faction, it's one of the last holdovers. I mean, there's some other ones that like just need to look at, but man, I don't think anything needs it like Seraphon do. What else? I'll pick 3. So we'll do Seraphon. I think Carriage and Overlords need. I mean, just seeing the way that they've evolved their language of how to write rules, I think a new Carriage and Overlords book would be amazing. And when I say language of writing rules, like what I mean is, if you look at the cities and orc books, which I can actually show you here in a sec, even just the way that they've done the battle line thing, like the battle line if kind of stuff, is really, really smart. Where you get stuff like Ardboys are battle line in Ironjaw's army, or a Great Wall, but only if there's 10 dudes, and you can buy them in units of 5, which is just like a weird. Okay, so you get a benefit of having this battle line, but you still have restrictions in how it's made. Like that's a neat new idea. Yes. And of course, all the stuff with Cities of Sigmar, there's a lot of new design space opened up there. So I think those 2. So I said I was going to pick 3. So there's 2, right? Space Lizards and KO. If I had to pick a third, I'd honestly say Tzeentch, because the game has evolved quite a bit since that army got its treatment. That's what I would like. Question: rumor is Tzeentch later this year. What would you like to see lore-wise come out of that book? For the Tzeentch one, lore-wise? You know, honestly, Tzeentch is one of those books that I actually love their lore. I don't want anything to be added to it. Well, that's not true. I want a bunch of stuff to be added to it, like in terms of timeline and cool battles and that kind of stuff. But the thing is my problem with Tzeentch has always been that the army on the tabletop doesn't match what they give you in the lore. And so what I really want out of that book is for it to match. So for example, in the book, when they talk about these like Carrick acolytes, there's several stories of smart people or leaders of the cities being corrupted in secret, and then all of a sudden there's like an uprising and a revolution, and they start fighting, and the Stormcast are overwhelmed because the city's falling apart from the inside. And it almost has like a Gene Stealer cult feel from like 40k. If you I don't know. I want that, and there's no way to bring that to the tabletop. You can put Carrick Acolytes on, but I just don't feel like it's the same thing as like this internal ambush thing of deceptive magic and that kind of stuff. And that's what I want. If they were the Gene Stealer cults of AOS, I'd be like, yes. Zinch lore, the Necroquake made stuff happen. Exactly. That's what all these new books are. It's just, hey guys, we made this one event that affected everybody. Here's some new lore to kind of put you in where everybody's at when that happened. And honestly, like, if that for the foreseeable future is how they go about doing these updates, I'm cool with that. Like, if there's some whatever the next cataclysmic thing is that happens, right? Because everything is apocalyptic at level on these books, you know. And then as they like go back through the cycle and re-release new battle tomes, it was just, here's the same lore plus whatever happened, that next cataclysmic thing. I'm fine with that. That's a cool cycle. So it'd be nice to have the option. Wait, what? Oh, Zinch could also use some mortal models. I agree. 100%. When I had my Zinch stuff, I never owned any Carrick Acolytes because I bought a bunch of stuff used and they just weren't in a lot. But I just never felt compelled to even buy them because, like, as much as I loved that whole kind of lore from the book, there was just no way to play it. I was just like, okay. They have Acolytes. Yes, that is it. Acolytes and Slaves to Darkness. Which were never the optimal build, but I always loved doing Zinch with my Slaves to Darkness, because nobody expects a 40-man block of Marauders to do a 12-inch charge. That was also back in the day before they had like the summoning thing, so when you could just have your Slaves to Darkness army and just say like, I'm a corn army now, and like you wouldn't have to worry about summoning really. Let's see. I wish they would release more cities later on, like Ulgu, Hish, Chaman. Yeah, I think that'd be cool. Cities of Sigmar, Part 2. I'm actually really curious if they're going to, like, over time, like, the Cities of Sigmar book exists the way it does now, and in the future, like, we'll get a dedicated, like, Phoenix Temple book or something like that. I don't know, that's just an example, but I'd be interested to see if that would happen. If, like, you know, you could run everything in your Cities of Sigmar, but then it gets its own cool book in the future. Like, oh, I'll be down for that. Especially if they do a good job of making the lore interesting in cities. I haven't cracked into the lore too much, to be honest with you. I've been too obsessed with the Iron Jawz book. Only Khorne has an optimal mortals build. I would argue there's some good lists that have for Nurgle, but that's we'll say few and far between of people who run them well, of which I want to be. But certainly, it's between Nurgle and Khorne with immortal stuff, because nobody else really has the full presence and model range to support like a full mortal thing. I think when I did this army last, I was being lazy and tried dry brushing the highlights of the armor. Which isn't bad. I mean, like, if you do that, that's awesome. But, like, I think specifically for the Iron Jawz army, or armor, it just doesn't have enough of a lip to catch the dry brushing as much, if that makes sense. So it looks like there's no highlights on anything. And I chose a very fickle kind of blue, so that was not a good idea. Any Iron Jawz lore update? I can grab the book and double check, but honestly, I can tell you right now for the units, no. No, nothing was updated for the units. I haven't reread Gordrak's thing yet. What else? For the most part, the added lore is more talking about Aurochs in general, like them like capital O, not so much specifically to the individual factions, and then just kind of explaining how they can combine forces, like Captain Planet style, and just duff everyone up. Like giving them a narrative reason to work together. Okay, let's see. As soon as I finish this boss's arm here, I will put the paintbrush down and I can bust out my book. We can take a look. See, with the highlight, that looks so much better. Okay. Give me 1 sec. There we go. Alright. I almost grabbed my old Bone Splitters Battle Tome because I was looking at the lore from that for comparison. Let's see here. So, lore that was added was more lore on each of the kind of like sub-factions. So, like, we have the Bone Grins, Icebone, and Drakfoot of the Bone Splitters, and then they do the same thing with Iron Sons, Bloodtooths, and Da Choppas. So, yeah, but honestly, there's honestly not a lot added. There's a section here about Gorka Morka I want to dive into. That's just the art. But like they even just copy and pasted like the way a war clan's built. It one thing I will tell you about the lore for this book though is the same thing happened with Pestilence when they wrapped it into Skaven, which is that because it wasn't trying to stretch this story over an entire battle tome, the way it is written is much more succinct. It's better, like in terms of just like it's easier to read. There's less fluff language, you know, like we all had to do when we were writing papers in high school or like that. And it's like minimum 1,000 words, and so you say things like the most weird way possible to like stretch your sentences out and beef them up. That's how it felt in the old one with some sections, but this is it's just clean. It's very cleanly written. But in terms of new lore, there's just the sub factions. Same thing with the Bone Splitters. This is the head of the beast that we talked about in that lore week. That was super fun to read about. I have to go through the timeline thing, but I'm pretty sure most of these are just combinations from both battle tomes put together. I recognize the names. I just got to double check. And let's see. In the aftermath of Mechanwick, Gordrak's hordes have been preoccupied with looting treasures from new... Okay, so Gordrak has been busy storming the storm vaults and getting a whole bunch of weapons. That's not good because he's a terrifying individual. Yeah, and I did read through the individual lore on the units just to double check, and it's all exactly the same. It's just written much better. But nothing... They never really change anything about the units once they've been designed. So yeah. Let me answer some questions here. If you have a question about the book, I have it in my hands right now. I also have Seas of Sigmar somewhere around here. We can go through that too. Let's take a look. Going for the Chappas, Doug? I am. Yeah, I already had them painted blue, and with this guy I tried the blue and white like the Chappas, and I asked the chat, they agreed with my suspicion that I think the orange works really well for these guys, and I'm going to put the white checkers of the Chappas on here, and there'll be a little split off splinter tribe, if you will, because I like the way they look. There's no reason to go back over that orange. That'd be silly. So let's see. Michael, I want it. It smells so good. It smells like new Battletome. Shui, so cool. Getting into the hobby for the first time in a long time. How do you decide which Sigmar faction to choose, specifically looking from a painting perspective? I would, if you're comfortable painting, look at what models interest you the most, for sure. Some armies that are super easy to paint is stuff like Stormcast or Fire Slayers. And as far as, for me personally, the lore does influence me quite a bit. Because I love the stories. And if that's something you're concerned about, you can definitely go check out other videos on the channel, because there's lore for every faction except for Beastclaw Raiders. And that one I'm just going to wait for the new book to come out. Let's see. Example of word stretching. The new peas were very small in the beginning of their lives as new peas. Exactly. It's exactly what it was, yeah. Let's see, question. Do you think they just gave themselves an out of... Do you think they just gave themselves an out if a WoW gets too big? Raiding storm vaults. I don't think I understand. Oh, I mean as far as like a narrative thing of like why they're not around? I don't know. Doug, that's a nice book. How much was it? This was free. It was sent to me from Games Workshop to do an advanced review. The problem is the mail didn't get it to me in time to do that. So I got it like in the middle of this week rather than the end of last week when it was supposed to come in. Yeah. Did they ever clarify the origin of orcs? Are they just like 40k where they are mushrooms? So let's take a look. The orc race is the first section here. Let's take a look. Green screens. Meh. I remember reading this section. Okay. The scholars of Hysh believe that when an orc is slain and its corpse left to rot, in the right conditions, it will... That's a word I don't know. It will basically decompose into fungal jelly. It then puts down thin, whitish strands into the earth below that can harness nutrients from the inherent magical power of the realm itself. From this, greenish flesh sacs become the young of the race. So that is one theory. There's another, let's see. Okay, yeah, so that's one theory from a Hysh scholar. It's kind of like Beasts of Chaos, where they don't really answer the question, but they give you some cool stuff to kind of think about. Oh, I just stuck my hand straight into that paint. Okay. Should probably not have my sopping wet palette directly beneath my fancy book. Like if a wall gets too big story-wise with raiding storm vaults, have them run into Penumbral Engine. Possible storytelling out. I'm gonna guess. They've never had a problem with getting out of storytelling. Let's see. Roots New. Aren't they just Warhammer Fantasy Orcs, but in the future of AOS? That's a hard one to answer, because not all the races are exactly the same as they were ported over. Like, for example, like Kirajan Overlords are their lineage comes from dwarves of the Fantasy Battles universe, but they are very different. Seriously, they were all mushrooms. Lots of things. That's just one theory. Let me see if I can find another one here. Where was I? Well, no, that's kind of the only one. I mean, it's said that it's a theory, but it's the only one presented. So that means when you kill an orc, you have to spend a lot of time disposing of the body, which is interesting because at that point, like, the orcs would run away and then come back to fight, and in that sense of keep distracting and harrowing you, the bodies are going to get left behind, and all of a sudden the next wall gets seated, and then yeah, that's an interesting idea. What characters made it from the old world? Quite a few. I don't have a complete list, honestly, off the top of my head. That's a bigger question than I normally do in the live strats. Let's see. Since we're getting a bunch of new army stuff, any guesses on the next 2-player starter box? Any guesses? 2-player starter box. What would I put in there? I think ogres and something with death. There you go. That's what I'm going to do. Let's see. Question. What combination of city and battle line in the new cities book do you think would be odd? I'm thinking like Dwarden, Longbeards, and a Halahart army. Yeep, let's take a look. I got this one right at my feet because I was talking about it with Jack. I don't actually know who the battle line is. So, battle line in Anvil Guard. Charybdis. Battle line in Cities of Sigmar. Steam Tank, if the team pick hero. Anvil Guard, War Hydra. There's not a lot. Oh, there is. Okay, I went right past it. It's like there's not a lot of just basic battle line, but this entire section of the thing is just battle line. I'm just a dingus. You know, honestly, I'm going to be super transparent here. This weekend, I'm hoping to jump into the lore of this book. I have not. So when you say something like, what's an odd battle line choice for this specific city? I don't actually know because I don't know anything about the cities. I'd imagine something fiery would be kind of a novelty in the living city where everything's like full of life and that kind of stuff. What do we got? Pirates in the realm of fire might be funny. Ambleguard's in actually Blood in the Water. Okay. There's some huge stories here. But one of the things I like, and actually I was talking about this earlier, is like for this example, this is the Scourge Privateers entry, and it just has like instead of going unit by unit and making it very small, like 1 paragraph things, they just have this cool blurb. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 paragraphs of like, here's the sense of the army. I was like, yes, thank you. Don't go unit by unit. Let me just explore the faction for myself. Incredible images in this book, by the way. Lots of art, painting things. I haven't actually looked at any of the battalions. Any good? Not looking great. Not a lot of them. Okay. If anyone has any specific questions on this, go ahead and fire when ready. I'm probably gonna hop off in about 20 minutes or so. I'm just gonna throw some washes on these dudes to get that going, so I can start painting them even more tomorrow. I don't know what happened. There's just like, I don't know if I just like got busy or was in a rush or what. I just didn't like finish these guys when I was doing them. So throw in a bunch of wash. We'll make the weapons all rusted. That'll keep them from being too bland. And we'll just paint ourselves some happy little orcs. Bob Ross now. Decided to start dipping my toes in AOS with Iron Jawz for Warcry. Will help break up the long painting jobs for my Thousand Suns. Whoa! First of all, that's awesome. I love Thousand Suns. Thank you for taking the chance to play Warcry. It's an absolute blast of a game. Had a great game last night. I hear Iron Jawz are pretty stinking good. I haven't actually played mine yet. Let's see. It's Betsy, Doug, with your Iron Jawz, were you getting ready for a tournament? Explains they might seem unfinished. Yeah, maybe. Maybe I was. I can't recall. That was like 4 army trades ago. Oh my god, I have a problem. That's funny. Do you think buying 1,000 points of just Bone Splitters, which units do you think are necessary? Just to clarify with the Bone Splitters, do you mean in the War Clans book, or do you mean 1,000 points in Warcry? Because the other guy was just talking about Warcry. So I just want to clarify that, and then I'll give my opinion. Because I do have one. I just want to make sure I'm not, like, answering the wrong game. Because they're different. Just AOS. Okay. So if you're going to run them as just 1,000 points of Bone Splitters, you're not gonna go for like the Maw Tribes thing. You're not gonna try and combine them with anything else. More boys are fantastic. They're only battle line if you're a Bone Splitters army, and it has to be specifically Bone Splitters. Like, you can't have any Iron Jaw stuff. You can't have anything from the Great Wall, which I think was kind of a miss. But they're super good. I think, let me bust out the book here. Let me just get this guy's mouth, and then I'll bust out the book. But I think a lot of the Bone Splitter stuff, it just strictly got better, like 110% across the. But when I say, not that they all got 100% better, but the across the board, every unit received something that just made them better. Let me see here. Oh, wait, that's the wrong book. That's the City of Sigmar. I'm not gonna find Bone Splitters in there. So we'll go to the Bone Splitters. They did some really cool things. So they added shamanistic quirks to the army, which is basically think like command traits, but it has to be specifically for a wizard, and you can get some fun stuff there. The fact that they all get a 5-inch move in the beginning of the game is pretty sweet. I'm trying to think of... I was looking at something specifically. Basically, a lot of the unit interactions just got really great. They got cleaned up quite a bit. As far as units go, it depends. If you want to lean into one of the... like the sub-factions, Bone Grins, Icebone specifically buffs like mounted units, like all the guys riding boars. That would be a really good one. Let's see, let me double check that's the right one. Field of Spirit. I haven't looked at these too much. I've mostly been focused on the Iron Jawz ones. This one is kind of funny, the Bone Grins one, where if any enemy units are within 12 inches, they have to charge you. There's no way they can't. Which is super funny. I like that as an idea. Like, because this way, you know, you're taking away some of your options by forcing yourself to always be in combat, but at the same time, the heavier penalty is on your opponent not being able to control their units within 12 inches of those guys. So that's kind of a fun thing. Yeah, so they're kind of a sneaky one. These guys, all about boars. Drakfoot is kind of the big talk of the town right now because the way it's worded is that the ethereal ability has no effect on attacks made by Drakfoot unit. They don't have a lot of rend and bone splitters, so ignoring ethereal is huge. In addition, any ability that negates a wound has no effect on wounds inflicted by this. So it needs to be clarified with a few specific units, but for the most part, this is a devastating thing with the buckets of dice you can throw. And they're wizard heavy. So as far as like what I would suggest, honestly, it's a little early to be suggesting things. I haven't run through everything yet. I just know from the stuff that I was planning to build, because I have a whole bunch of bone splitters in a box. The stuff that I was planning to build was really going to be focused on more boys, who are the more kind of elite infantry option. And they can be battle line, but it's only if you're just doing bone splitter stuff. Let's see, what's some of the good battalions here? So the Brutal Ruck is super cool. If you want just a really quick one, where it's a Savage Big Boss, which is the melee hero, and 2 to 5 units of Savage Boar Boys and Savage Orcs. Has to be any kind of combination of them. So 3 units minimum, and if they are wholly within 12 inches of the Big Boss, they can run and charge in the same turn. That includes the plus 5 inches of movement you can get for some units in the beginning of the game. So that's a huge one. Yeah. So that's pretty stinking cool. Conan looks interesting still. Yeah. I mean, that's the. It depends on where you want to go. Are you interested in pigs, or are you interested in foot dudes? Sorry, that was a long. There's a lot of time spent. Devin, let me know what you're interested in. We can probably go from there a bit more. Let's see. Question: would a bottle lobber unit for Gloomspite be cool, like a short range alternate to shoot us? I'd be down for it. Especially if there was a way. It'd be really cool if they had that, and there was a way to make have a guy who can like poison the bottles, like put poisons in them, because that way you kind of have like an engineer and artillery setup, but it's the derpy orc version, right, where the guy's like putting poisons in a bottle and all of a sudden they're chucking the bottles. I think that'd be really cool. Make that little combo. Instead of a Lord Ordinator making artillery better, he's like the Lord Poisonator, just making things gross. But I like it. Let's see. What got you into Warhammer? For me, it was Fire Warrior in the PS2. I had Warhammer models when I was a kid. My grandmother gave me some when I was very, very young, and she didn't know what they were. Like, just a hobby shop locally was closing, and she's like, "Oh, Doug likes building models," and I like building, you know, like World War II Huey copters and that kind of stuff. So that's kind of what introduced me to Games Workshop. As far as like, I kind of put it off to the side, didn't touch it again for a long while. And then really got into it again when I was in high school, and I picked up Dawn of War for 40K at Half Price Books for dirt cheap, and I fell in love with that game. So I got super into 40K, watched a ton videos about it and that kind of stuff back in the day, and put it all aside when I went to college, which is the same story as most folks, and then kind of got back into it immediately afterwards when I needed a hobby. So not an original story, you hear it a lot, but that one is mine. Thing about me getting all the heroes, just didn't know if cavalry units were good to buy or not, because I used to run a huge army of Saurus Knights. The cav in Bone Splitters is actually pretty solid. They're tough. The entire Bone Splitters army is going to have ignore wounds and mortal wounds on a 6, regardless of rend. And so nothing is long for the world, but they have 3 wounds each. Pretty good movement. Let me look at the book a bit more. If you don't mind, I'd like to be a little bit more educated before I give like definitive suggestions. Just because, I don't know. I'm always leery of like telling people like, hey, this is a good idea, unless it's like backed up by other much better players. But what I can, here's the thing. Here's what I can tell you about the new Warclans book, and the reason that it made me do a 180 on selling this army into repainting it is I feel, reading the rules, I couldn't think of an army composition that wouldn't be playable. You know what I mean? Like some factions, like, Deepkin, the Reaver Archer dudes spam. That's not easy, because there's not a lot of shots. They're not the highest quality. Like, there's just a lot of things that army would struggle to do. My point being that, like, that is a type of build that could exist for that army, but you never see it because it's not great. It's so not great that it could be not fun to play. Whereas I can't find that in this book. I can't think of a thing that doesn't sound fun with the rules that they've given you. And that's a huge deal. Okay, I was thinking maybe getting all the... Yeah, I heard that. Spezia, Doug, you were the reason I got into... Oh, I got into the game. Oh, well, thank you. That's very kind of you. I love hearing that. It had an impact on someone. All right. Well, let's see. What's else? I think we're all set to start doing the checkered patterns. Let's see. Yep, this guy's already go, so he's good. He's done. Switch these boys. I think it's going to be awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and hop off for the night because it is almost 10 o'clock here. Now I'm losing my voice. So, but I think that I might do a live stream tomorrow. We'll see if I can get videos done. Right now it's all about getting videos for Cities of Sigmar and Iron Jawz done. So we'll see how much I can get accomplished on Saturday. And we'll jump back into it. So thank you all so much for joining me when I was hanging out. I know it's not everyone's jam to hang out with orcs, but yeah. Let's see. Last right before I go, Spezia. Sacrosanct are crushing it locally. Any tips to make them less good? Let me think about that, and I want to get back to you. I want to think about that. I'm not sure. So anyway, all right, friends, I will check you out later. Have a wonderful night.